What's up, everyone, and welcome to Washington is a Joke, the show where we talk about the virus, PPP, and stimulus checks for you and for me. So we've been off a little bit the last week. It's been a little bit of a slower news cycle. Also been trying to work on some hopefully some exciting improvements coming to the show. We're not quite ready yet this week, but hopefully sometime next week or maybe even next weekend, we'll get to showcase some of the stuff that we've been working on. So this week, like every Saturday, we're going to go around the world. We're going to give you some updates on stories we talked about in the past. Also, some new interesting developments as well. So just like most weeks, where we're going to start is we are going to start with good old Japan. You know, we always start this story off here, mostly because I find it very interesting. In the sense that everything in Japan, from hygiene to government messaging, seemed to for so long to be like, wow, they really have this figured out, even better so than South Korea. But now the Olympics again have been canceled, the training wheels are starting to come off. It seems that things are not looking so great, that they're progressively going worse, which, again, personally I find a bit surprising. But Japan seems to be doing everything they can now to try to get ahead of the virus. The Tokyo mayor came out this week and is encouraging, again, people to stay home, people to self-distance, and really just trying to figure out ways to kind of try to put the lid back on the virus, because while trying to make everything appear it's fine, don't worry about it, go about your daily life, obviously it allows the virus to spread. And then now you're playing catch up in the sense of, okay, do you have enough support? Do you have enough resources? So, at this point, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it is starting to get better in some places. So hopefully, again, in Japan, they can experience the same thing. But to be honest, I don't really understand exactly why this kind of cascading effect seems to be happening there. But, we'll keep monitoring it. Obviously, if they get any updates, we'll be sure to share those with you here. The next place we're going to go to is we're going to go and kind of talk about Hong Kong, Singapore, and really Taiwan as well. And why do we talk about these places? Well, for one thing, they seem to be doing very well initially. Again, just like Japan, they seem to have identified where the virus is coming from, largely coming in from mainland China. They're able to track down local cases. There were some issues in Hong Kong with local government not taking it serious, but those seem to be resolved. And, for all intents and purposes, it seemed like this virus was just going to go away there or just not affect people. But, something went wrong. For Singapore, for example, just like here in the U.S., where you have migrant workers who kind of all live in dormitories together, they have the same situation in Singapore with foreign workers who work low-skill construction jobs all coming in and staying in a dormitory together. So unlike in the West, and even South America, where it was believed that a lot of these cases got spread by rich people going elsewhere. So in Brazil, it was going to Europe. For Mexico, it was the elite of Mexico going to a ski event in, I believe it was Colorado, bringing it back. In Singapore, though, it's believed that these domestic workers kind of came back, had issues of local domestic spread contact, where the people that they're living with, they ended up spreading it to. And now it's kind of cascading again into other parts of Singapore. Hong Kong and Taiwan, they're having issues where people, many of the students there, they study abroad in the UK or they study abroad in the US. And now as those countries are shutting down, their parents are like, whoa, you need to come back. And so you're re-importing cases, and you're having situations where the government thought everything was fine because, again, domestically it was. But when people come back, it's a little bit of it's hard to catch everyone. So I think that, again, hopefully be able to find it. They obviously have better preparation, in my opinion, than we've had here in the U.S. But it is worrying because it did seem that they knew where things were. And so if it's shown that it can reemerge there in places that have really good standards of care, really good contact tracing and healthcare, then that bodes a worrying sign for what happens if, this comes back to the U.S., especially when the U.S. seems in such a rush to be like, well, we need to reopen. Because obviously economic devastation is bad. Like, I'll be the first to admit, I don't think that we should stay closed forever, but I think if we don't have a clear understanding of what causes this virus to emerge, when it shows up, when it doesn't, then, you're potentially looking at an even worse situation where you reopen, you say go back for 2 to 4 weeks, and then close again. That, to me, would be terrible, because I think that really puts a hard strain on people mentally. It's just, well, I just don't know what to do. And, hopefully we from the U.S. and other countries can learn about situations where the virus appears to be resolved and is not coming back, to learn about, okay, what worked or what should we do different. There's also an argument to be made that as international travel does kind of subside and is kind of at a point now where I don't know if there's many people who are still trying to get home, then hopefully, over the next 4 to 6 weeks, we can stamp this out. but it really does depend on social distancing, good healthcare practice, washing your hands, and really taking care of yourself. So please continue to do that. The next we're going to go to is, the big epicenter, China. So the two stories really been continuing to following. The first is the fires. And from talking to friends, like doing research, I think that really the most likely explanation is really this, is that there is a lot of insurance fraud going on, in the sense that your business is closed, you don't have any revenue, you're sort of, well, I don't want to make payments on it, so you're lighting your apartment on fire, or you're lighting your business, or they're even having ships that are on fire. So I really do think this is a reason to suspect fraud, just because of the scale that it is. And obviously being in a place as big as China, there's going to be fires. Sure, there's fires here in the US all the time. But the scale and the variety of these fires, even at CITIC, which is China's big kind of investment conglomerate, where they invest overseas, like they had a fire there in Shenzhen this week. And so it really just seems to be spreading to the sense of, if anyone can make money back from the insurers, then great, which could also then lead to insurance defaulting, unable to afford fire coverage or fire payments, or if they suspect fraud. So that'll be an interesting story to keep following. The other story there that's been very, tragic is China really pushing back against African migrants. So China, through the Belt and Road and other what's called like donation diplomacy, they've really invited a lot of African workers and intellectual to come to China, study there, create businesses, create trading ventures. But for whatever reason recently, the Chinese government government/media has now decided they're going to scapegoat Africans. So you'll see here, they're kicking people out, making them walk on the street. There's people who are being evicted from their home. They're now being homeless, and there's not really a good explanation for why this is. Clearly this virus did not originate in Africa. There's always been an element of racism in China toward Africans, and so that's obviously personified with this. But it is very strange to me that you would scapegoat this. If anything, I think that if you were going to scapegoat someone, you would scapegoat Westerners, or specifically Americans, and at least then, we can disagree and that's the correct thing, but at least that comes from somewhere. This just seems ridiculous that you have people who have lived in China for 10, 20 years, etc., who are now just saying, oh, you're the cause of the problem, let's evict you, let's get rid of it. And as this says, even the Chinese media can't get in front of it, because there's no logical reason for this to happen. And I don't really know what it's going to lead to, but it's very sad, it's very tragic. So hopefully this situation there gets resolved for people sooner rather than later. Now, this is hopefully the start of some more positive news. So Iran, again, despite all the signs of stuff going wrong, is saying that they're going to start to reopen economic activities. Whether this is out of desperation, whether this is because stuff's getting better, again, trying to be an optimist, I am going to hope that things are getting better, which, when we talked two weeks ago or so, I thought things were going to go quickly deteriorate there. But for one reason or another, it seems that this situation has slowly started to improve. And again, it's all about here in the U.S. finding models of what works, find what doesn't work. And so hopefully Iran will be able to provide some glimmer of hope if, in fact, their country is able to reopen, the economy does get back going. But again, if it doesn't, then again, it shows that you really need to be clear of XYZ before you reopen. The other big news story this week was in the UK, where Boris Johnson went to ICU. Now, Boris Johnson, about, I believe, a month ago, was famous for, again, coming out, oh, coronavirus, no big deal. He went to a coronavirus hospital, shook hands with patients. Don't worry about me. It'll all be fine. And then he comes down with coronavirus. And then also, I believe the end of last week, got admitted to the ICU, which is whoa, wow. What's going to happen if a serious leader, passed away due to this? Well, again, some positive news. Obviously, you can see here, he's making good progress. We here on Watching This Joke wish him nothing but the best. We always hope everyone makes it through this crisis together. You don't have to agree on everything to really wish that people stay alive. But yeah, it's great to see. Hopefully, again, it showcases the importance of public health. And again, hopefully that they're continuing to find treatments that work, and that, again, having someone who's so important keeping alive, if you find something that works, hopefully it's replicable. Again, wish him nothing but the best. Now, here in the U.S., we are approaching Easter holiday, and also in the middle of Passover for our Jewish friends in the audience. So Easter, though, I would say is more interesting because of the amount of people who seem to be militantly interested in having their Easter service. Now, again, Easter service is a very big deal. As someone who was raised Christian, grew up Christian, I understand that, I get that. But again, there's things called remote services. You don't always need to go to church to have the full experience. And, Eamon Bundy here, who, if you'll remember from a few years back, was the rancher who, threatened the federal agents for coming into his property, and then was also up in Oregon and occupied a national park. Well, now he's decided in Idaho that they're going to stick it to the government once again, and if they get infected with coronavirus, well then boo-hoo, whatever. And I think we unfortunately are going to see a lot more of this. You're going to see a lot more people who say, enough is enough, I want to take my risk, I don't really care what you say, I'll be fine. And I think it's really sad, and I think it also goes to show when people lose faith in their government, or when it appears that there is not a real alternative or plan, then you're going to see people like Eamon Bundy pop up and appear to offer solutions of, we just got to go attack, we got to go after it. And again, for me, I think it's a terrible idea. I think that people, again, should stay home. But it doesn't really seem that there's an effective counter-narrative to him of why it's bad, other than, please stay home. Obviously, again, he has his followers, he has people who believe in him, but even the state of Idaho is like, please don't do this. But we'll just have to see. I think Sunday's going to be a very critical day to see how many people show up in mass gatherings. Hopefully, it's very few. Again, there's plenty of options for people to watch services online. Please, if that is something that you're interested in, please consider doing it. But please, if you can, don't go to a service. It's just not worth the risk. No matter how healthy you feel, no matter how, the virus may not be a big deal in your community, just please take one Easter, take it off, be remote, be safe. So now we're going to finally move into the lovely DC. And this week, again, some good news. First round of stimulus checks are coming to people. I haven't got mine. Hopefully you have got yours. But again, it's only available for people who have already filed electronically in 2018 and 2019, and the government will be using that to send you the money. What is kind of still unclear is the process for obviously the people who are most vulnerable, the people who are in working class neighborhoods or maybe, dealing with cash businesses. And these are the people that, again, for me, I'm most worried about they're not going to get the help that they need soon enough. And I don't really know if they ever will get help, because they are at the bottom of the pyramid. There's so many more richer and powerful people going to the government right now and saying, please give me your money, please, I need money, that these people at the bottom are going to suffer. I mean, you're starting to see food lines for food banks to start to line up. You're going to see people seem increasingly depressed. Here in Dallas, our city is essentially divided in half, where north of a highway is fairly affluent, below it is fairly unaffluent or poor, and that below the highway line you're really seeing this outbreak of the virus where people who don't have access to health care, or again may work more on a cash basis, are really experiencing higher rates of the virus. And I think you're going to continue to see that as people who can get care do, and the people who don't suffer. And again, that's why you've seen African Americans and Hispanics with a higher rate of mortality and infection rate, again, because it's just hard to intervene there or diagnose it when people are already hesitant to go and seek out help because of the cost. So another positive thing, and if you watch the show, I've been advocating for, is getting more financial FinTech firms involved in getting people money. So you see here, PayPal is now offering financial protection program, the PPP, which again, the more the better. Whether it's Stripe, whether it's them, anything else that can get money into businesses' hands faster to retain employees, the sooner the better, because it's going to get increasingly hard to get people back to work the longer this goes. I read something before coming on today that says Disney is about to lay off, I believe, 45,000 workers. They'll continue to receive benefits but not pay starting next week. And again, that number is just going to continue to increase from these large businesses. Friday or Thursday, the Employment Commission reported 6 million new people fired for unemployment. The government's response is just to print more money, which again is a very short-term solution for now a structural issue. And I just don't really know if they have a solution, because printing more money and trying to print your way out of this is not going to solve the solution if you don't fix the fundamentals. Obviously, you have a challenge where the everything bubble is popping in combination with this virus. But again, we shouldn't, eliminate our currency entirely or print so much money that by the time we get out of this, there's very little left to buy or to build back up. And it can be kind of confusing, like, what does this inflation thing mean? Like, what does it mean when you say they're printing more money? How does that affect me? So, let's just have like a basic example of, let's say that you are able to afford 6 eggs right now. Well, if you keep printing money and inflation rates keep rising, in for your same money, you can buy 3 eggs. Or, keep printing money and then it's 2, then it's 1. And, in the extreme situation, what you have here is you have what happened in Germany where your money was essentially worthless and it was only good for burning in a fireplace. I don't think we are getting there by any means. But it is concerning that you're just going to continue to print, and we'll see what happens. So the other thing that was a big story this week was trying to investigate the president's supposed investment in hydroxychloroquine, and then also his continuing pushing on that. Well, the first, again, why I think journalists really need to do their job is the president had very limited, something like $100 to $500 stake in this French company that makes this drug. But, it's going to be a big story, whatever. And then it was kind of figured out online that, that's actually not a big deal. And then, but on the flip side, you have the president, you have Republicans who are like, this drug's a lifesaver. We need to pump it out, give everyone this drug, it will solve everything. And I think that's equally dangerous. I don't have an opinion on this drug. I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert, I have no idea what this drug really even does or doesn't do. But I think it's concerning when people just seem to push out a solution and say, well, by God, I'm just going to do it at all costs, and if people die, whatever, we'll just do our trials in real time. There's a doctor who is essentially prescribing it to elderly patients here in Texas, like, I'm just going to conduct my own trials. And again, I think that's dangerous. I think figure out, have tests, have vaccine research, figure out what works, what doesn't, but don't just push things out and say, well, if someone dies, they're going to die anyways, and who cares? I think that's very dangerous, and I really would like it to stop. And that's also, too, why, for me, I've actually stopped watching a lot of the president's town hall, or whatever he calls town halls, his events, coronavirus task force briefings, because they've turned into what feels just more like a really bad campaign rally. At first, there was new information. It was interesting to see what it wasn't working. But now it's essentially just him talking for an hour and a half, and then reporters asking very amateur questions that they don't even know the full extent of their question because they're trying to get the president in a got-you situation. That doesn't serve anyone's interest whatsoever. May try to tune in a little bit more this week if there's any, again, updates on the supposed phase 4 of getting people more money, because, again, we're almost halfway through April, and we're about approaching May rent due, and, again, people are still not able to get money. There's still going to be a rising insurance of forbearance where people are refusing to pay from a commercial, but also individual renters who can't afford to make their payments. So I don't really know what the federal government's going to do with this. Hopefully they allow some remote voting. Hopefully they can continue to figure out that their current path is not going to work. But, we don't know yet. We are going to have to continue to follow it. Now, finally, we're going to end up here in Texas where, again, we're talking about being in the Bible Belt, being in a place where churches are a really big deal. I think it's very disappointing that the governor is like, well, I'm going to give you special permission because this is more important. I think it'd been great to say, we're going to work with churches, we're going to make sure that all their services are live streamed, we're going to continue to facilitate ways of getting people, in fact, having more money there, and continue to allow churches to support remote experience. This seems to be a recipe, again, for disaster. Again, Sunday to me, and probably the following days will be a big deal about whether this Easter becomes a huge problem or it tends not to be. Hopefully it's not, but it is worrying that people, again, are saying, well, I'm blessed by Jesus, or this is important, so I'm going to go to church anyways. And then the final thing that I think will be interesting for us here in Texas is the governor, again, talking about, we're going to start reopening soon. Again, I don't know if we've even flattened the curve here in Texas. It seems that the cases are still rising. Again, with Easter coming up, it'll be interesting. Just, all you can do is hope for the best. I think that the priorities, though, are a little bit off in the sense of they're still just continuing to downplay this illness. They're still continuing to be like, it's not a big deal. We have everything that we need. And I just don't think that they do. So, hopefully here we will see what happens. probably planning to do another show either Tuesday or Wednesday. Thank you everyone for joining. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Remember, be kind, take care of one another, and we will get through this together. Have a good afternoon, and I will see you later. Thanks everyone. Goodbye.